this can turn into a universe, kind of like everyone else's shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I like universes. I'm into universes. Speaking of universes, welcome back to Gear and Beer. Today I have with me the pride of Elyria, Ohio, Mr. Robbie Muzick. Robbie, find your beer and clank it into mine.
Oh, yeah. Oktoberfest, buddy.
Cheers. Oktoberfest in October.
It only seems right.
It does, but the weird thing about that I learned recently, Oktoberfest happens in September in Germany.
Really?
That's what someone told me.
I mean, I believe that, but
that's when they all come out, or they
sure,
even
sure,
in
sure.
the end of August,
or maybe just like kind of gearing up towards, you know.
Sure, gearing and beering up towards.
Exactly.
That's what I'm talking about.
Hey, that's weird. How that works together.
Just,
like that.
You just put it right in there for me. Well, welcome, man. For the longest time, I only did this on Tuesdays.
Yeah.
And that was probably conflicted with your gig schedule.
Yeah,
so,
I got that Booze Day Tuesday gig, you know what I mean?
Robbie Muzick and the Sit Down All-Stars at AJ's.
It's true. Yeah, it's true. I can't even argue it.
But they're all-stars, so who cares?
Sometimes I'm like, can I sit down? Like, and then I'm like, nah.
You can't sit
I haven't earned it yet.
You don't need to sit down.
I need to put at least 20 more years on Broadway.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
And then I can sit down.
Yeah.
They are all stars, though, man. And I'm telling you what, most of the time I get the compliments. People are like, "Oh, you're a great singer." I'm like, "Thanks," and then they go, "But good Lord, that band is good." And I'm like, "Mm-hmm."
And that's why we call them.
And that's why they sit down. They've earned it.
Hell yeah! And you're just playing acoustic and singing on that.
Yeah, man. It's the.
Do you take any acoustic solos?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
okay,
there's no way that I could not.
I'm about to say. Well, I was just going to say that's a travesty.
Sure, yeah. Well, I also have an acoustic with a B bender in it, so.
Of course you do.
You have to.
You didn't bring it.
I was going to, but the strings are completely shot, and I didn't have time to change anything.
Copy. Well, you can bring that next time.
Yes.
I don't know that have I laid hands on that thing?
I don't know if you have, and that's actually a travesty because you'd love it.
Is it a Washburn?
Yeah, it's a Washburn Force.
You brought it over here once, maybe.
Yes.
I can't remember if I played it or not. Back in the pandemic live streams.
Yeah.
But I don't remember specifically playing it.
Yeah, maybe you didn't. It's a travesty because you'd love it. The action is great. The tone actually out of the pickup is really great. The tone out of the acoustic is great. It's just like a
whatever's in there.
Typical Fishman.
Oh, okay.
You know, it's like low. Excuse me. Oktoberfest is right there.
Making itself felt.
Yeah.
And known.
I
smell. I said.
Soon.
Making it smell felt. Welcome back to Gear and Beer.
To Beer and Beer.
Beer and more beer.
No, but it's just a low level like Fishman, and I can't believe how good it sounds. And I have grumpy engineers, constantly going, "Man, that thing sounds good." And I'm like,
it probably sounds like, "Man, that thing sounds good."
Yeah. And it's the cheapest acoustic I've ever bought. It's worth more than that. It's worth about close to, I think, like $2,000 or something. But like,
it's just a weird thing to have the B benders.
I paid $350 for it.
It's a great price for an instrument.
Absolutely. The bender alone costs $350. And Forrest Lee Jr., who you know, it's his model, Washburn.
Oh.
Yeah, so they
that makes all
they made.
I can't believe that we would have talked about this in this much depth and me have forgotten it. But then again,
maybe we didn't.
That.
Like, we weren't really chatting about gear back then as much.
Well, that's not on those acoustic nights anyway.
Yeah, we were just kind of doing the thing.
Yeah, let's just see if we can make $80.
Please, Lord, let me pay rent.
Let me make the $80.
But so the Forrest Lee Jr. deal is like they produced him for a while, and like they actually just a couple years ago quit. And this guy that I remember seeing it online like years ago and being like, someday
like on Sweetwater or something?
Yeah. I was like, someday I'll get to own an acoustic with a B bender. That would be insane. And the guy posted it on like Craigslist like a bunch of years ago, and man, $350.
I'm sorry, I'm all jacked up over here. I'm good now. Yeah, it's an acoustic instrument, especially.
Absolutely,
$350 is you're stealing something.
You're looking at entry level Takamine for $350.
I had when I was in high school, my grandpa gave me. I think I actually got it in middle school. It was an Alvarez Yare matte finish.
Yeah,
with a I don't know what random ass pickup in it, and the jack and the strap nut.
Yep.
And someone stole it from backstage while I was playing a gig. Someone accidentally brought it, and I didn't need it.
Right. Somebody took it with them.
Yeah, and somebody else took it, and then I came back and I was like, "Oh yeah, let me grab my guitar." Oh wait, where's my guitar?
Yeah,
it's worth very little, but just an amazing guitar.
Yeah,
and
well,
my grandpa gave it to me.
Well, that's the important part, but also you get lucky on those guitars. I had
you used to. It's harder to get lucky these days.
Not anymore.
The absolute profit over quality production costs.
Taylor makes some really fine guitars, but Taylor also makes some really bad guitars.
Everyone makes some really bad guitars. It's a matter of if you make good ones or not.
Yeah, well, I mean, at least on the upper end. But now, you go into Gibson acoustics, and they're not worth anything to me now. Even the high end stuff, you might get some custom shop stuff that would be worthy, but
well, they keep having all these wood snafus, so they're making it out of crap, I guess.
Well, Matt
petrified human residue.
Matt Griffith has this J45 that is insanely good. No, it's a J50.
Okay, Lyndon just got a 69 J50.
Well, this is a new one. This is
really?
He played. He said something like 40 or 50 guitars, right? He just kept trying guitars. And then his old guitar teacher from back home in Colorado calls him and says, I have a guitar. I bought it because I played it at Guitar Center and it was so great. I was just like, somebody needs this. So he bought it and he sold it to him for the same cost. And it was, let's say no more than $2,200, right? And it is an outlandishly good Gibson. But 60 or 70 guitars had to be played to find that one.
I was just about to say, and how many did he have to play to find the one?
Yeah,
so,
that's what I'm saying.
When you need an acoustic, you need to have the money set aside, and it just stays somewhere, and then you just, as you can, you just
keep adding,
But I'm just going to say, once you've hit your entry level for how much money you have stacked, then you just got to start playing them.
Oh, yeah.
And you have to be willing to leave that money alone and keep playing guitars and to not settle, especially on an acoustic instrument.
Absolutely, yeah.
You can usually trick an electric guitar into sounding good, or at least having a function.
Well, also you can always land on a Telecaster, and there are some better than others, obviously, but for less than $1,000, you can buy a Telecaster that will do phenomenally.
Sure,
it'll stay in tune forever. The tone is good.
They do stay in tune so well, man.
Well, so I brought two guitars with me that are the opposite of what I grew up playing. I grew up playing Telecasters, and I didn't think ever that I would enjoy another guitar.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And one of them is a Telecaster, but it's got the snake head. It's like the old school, the prototype models.
Yeah.
Or the snake head thing. But obviously, there's something to that 6 on the side, that Fender just nailed it, man. And I'm sure that took some tweaking over the years, but they do it well.
I mean, regardless of the price level of these Fender guitars that I have, or the Fender style, Tele style tune, Fender style tuners, they all stay in tune just so good.
Yeah, absolutely. Fender shaped objects.
Yes, Fender shaped objects.
And they always do, man. They kind of always will. I mean, I'm a big fan of it. Yeah.
Let's hope. I love my Teles, but I played them so much for the last 10 years that lately on gigs, I've just been playing this 330, bro.
Yeah.
Because it's pretty spanky, too.
So, that's kind of what I was getting at. I played Teles my whole life, 20 years even, of just Teles. And I'd own a weird, offshoot or something, or a Les Paul, a Epiphone Les Paul or something. And I'd have to use it for a certain thing. There for a little while, for about a year, I was playing a baritone on every gig. I would just capo on the 5th fret, and then when I wanted lower register, it was awesome.
I'm now thinking about doing
Well, I played, so the problem is obviously the strings are taut, so it's not easy to bend, but I was playing a blues gig. So for me, everything I did kind of didn't have to be hard bends,
Yeah.
I could get away with that. And then also,
You could also put lighter strings on there, or
Yeah.
you could tune it down a half step since you're capoing it up anyway and slack the strings a little bit.
Sure, that's true, yeah. Well, so there's two schools on baritones. There's tuning to B and there's tuning to A.
Yeah.
And I always tune to B because my brain works quicker to transpose on the spot. I tried the A for a little while and it kept screwing. I was like, this don't make no sense.
Yeah, but when you can just drop down a string set.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you
makes
just this. Yeah.
That makes sense. I see that. I don't think that. I just don't generally like the way guitars with less tension feel.
Yeah.
I like more as much as I can stand and like play a long gig and do bends. Like
So you like 13 gauge strings on a Strat?
No, I'm not Josh Smith, but I mean I guess that's a Tele.
Good God. Stevie Ray, I mean,
That's true, but he tuned down.
but still.
Josh Smith does not.
But you're also talking about 13 gauge strings tuned down half steps, so now you're at what, 11 and a halfs?
Yeah, I mean
It's
that's
still substantial.
a little girthy.
Yeah, but also
Sounds humongous.
that guy was he was just one of those,
There's something to it, and there's so many dudes that also have really good sounds that play like nines and 9.5s. I know a lot of people.
Billy
that play
Gibbons plays like
9.5s.
eights, right?
Yeah, something crazy.
But he played big strings for years, and he said, I thought it was all string. Now, don't get me wrong. Billy Gibbons' tone is still great, and like he's playing that Pearly Gates, and it's awesome. But like, there is a little bit of a thinness to it, but not like what you would
live. There's definitely
but not what you like in the studio. It's fine, and like,
well, sure, but there's also a bunch of cool stuff on the other end of that.
Moving knobs and such.
Yeah, 100%.
But I mean, like I think the thing about it being thin live might even have to do with age. Like that dude's got to be mostly deaf at this point,
Yeah.
Those dudes have been playing loud and proud for, 40 years? It's like that documentary that came out was like, I think it was 40 or 50.
What year? What documentary?
There was a documentary that came out a couple years ago. It's on Netflix, I think.
You remember what it's called? Was it called something weird? Sometimes they put such weird titles on documentaries. I'm like,
well, it was like the Life and Times of ZZ Top. It was like they were being interviewed of recent.
No, I remember it now.
Yeah.
I remember it now. It was like a year or two. Maybe 3.
Right before quarantine.
That sounds right.
Yeah,
that's probably when I watched. I remember that now.
It's hard to remember that because quarantine for a little while was literally, like everyone says, it's a wash. I mean, sometimes I'm like, did that happen or did I dream that?
Yeah, it's like, man, I watched so much TV.
I watched stuff I never thought I'd watch.
It's like, man, is it okay to watch 10 hours of TV every day?
Hey, man, what else are you going to do? Start a podcast and...
start a podcast and start an infinity bottle.
Yeah. So the folks probably don't even know. I mean, we talked about it a lot back then, but...
we didn't ever actually release anything.
We never did. Well, and we all got busy, man. Like, as soon as we started working back downtown, I was like... I took every gig. I remember playing like something like 30 days straight without taking any time off.
We're going to go with a very small pour.
Oh, yeah.
And then we can decide what to do from there.
So, Miller and I started a podcast during quarantine.
That's me.
Yeah, he's the other Rob, called Rob to Rob. And we drank whiskey and we talked a little bit about gear and we talked about food and literally just to stop us from going insane.
Yeah.
And to have another human to talk to. You had Aaron, but like at some point, both of you are just like, please. Like,
yeah, well, and she doesn't want to talk about she's not a movie person and she's not a musician.
Yeah.
So she likes music, but.
So we would drink different whiskeys every week and then pour a little bit into this.
And so the deal with the infinity bottle is the general principle is you pour however much you want to of any whiskey that you really like into this bottle, and as you're drinking, you're adding. So it's like an ever-changing
it
thing.
evolves every time.
It's pretty cool. So without further ado,
I'm excited about this, man. I haven't done this yet.
I tasted it like a long time ago.
Oh, wow.
It's pretty smooth, man.
But I mean, like, there's like, I'm not even like a connoisseur, and it's like there's a complexity to this, There's like fruitiness from what's that real fruity whiskey that you always used to?
Which one? The Willet?
Yes.
Yeah, the Willet. Small batch special rye reserve of America.
I think there's some Blantons in here. There has to be.
There's a bunch of Blantons.
We drank a lot of Blantons. Mm-hmm. There's some Greenbrier in here.
There is. There's the Ruby cask.
No. That's the
Cumberland cask.
Cumberland cask is in here. Yeah.
Ruby cut, or what was it called?
It's I think it's just called Ruby because it's cut in port barrel, or it's aged in port barrels.
Okay, yeah. So that Ruby is in there.
I think also the Cumberland cask proof is in here too.
I don't remember that one. There was something called Blue something. Did you get a blue?
Yeah.
Blue room.
I don't know.
There's Buffalo Trace in here. There's probably Eagle Rare in here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Those are my two favorites, and the ones that I seem to find the most often. That and that bottle of Willet, that rye. I found another bottle of it not too long ago after not seeing anything except for Buffalo Trace.
But that's how that works. I mean, like,
I guess so.
They come out in batches, and like Blanton's comes out once a year,
right.
And you have to like be cool with your.
Well, I am, and they're cool, which is why I'm able to find what I can find.
Sure, yeah.
But just with all the shortages of everything from drivers to COVID restrictions and material availability and shipping delays. And
dude.
Whatever, it's like. Yeah. Here's what I don't understand. So this is going to make for great audio, but the battery thing is blinking like it's about to die, but it's plugged in. There's no battery in there. It's either on or it's off. But
does it always do that?
No, and then in a little bit it'll go back and it'll say that it's fine. I think it might have something to do with the way the file's stored. It's stored
like it's killing the battery quicker than it's charging the battery, maybe.
No, because there is no battery. It's literally plugged. It's an adapter. It's plugged in. So it's either on or it's off. But I think maybe that's reflecting where the file stops. So even though this camera stops at 30 minutes, the file separates into the first 19 minutes and 58 seconds, and then the rest of it goes into another file. And
that's weird.
There's nothing missing. It's a seamless edit,
but it just separates the files that way.
And so it's getting close to that separation. So and I keep just like pointing at
technology is weird, bro.
So I'm wondering if that's what it's telling me. It's about to separate. So I'll look over here in a minute, and we'll see.
Hey, look over there in a minute.
And I may have to come back and be like, that theory cannot be proven, but that's just the way it goes sometimes.
That's just the way it is.
All right, tell him, Bruce.
Dude, this set looks amazing, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, like when we were filming on the other side, kind of in a couch area, and this was
comfortable.
This was kind of always here, but like it wasn't quite as a set yet.
No, it certainly was.
And the amps, I mean, obviously, all of these are completely working amps, and they're all amazing.
And cabinets. We can't say completely working. The Twin is still something weird.
Isn't it half though? Don't you have like one speaker in the Pro or something?
There's one speaker in the Twin, but something is wrong with the head, and the output is really low. I don't know if I just don't know what happened because it doesn't travel anywhere, and I'm pretty sure that I had new glass put in there. I just need to get it up to Butler.
It could literally just be one part went bad. I mean, like what is it, 65, 66? 67, yeah.
The Pro's a 65, the Twin is a 67.
Yeah, same thing. I mean,
it sounds good, but there's like also weird noise when
you definitely got to take it to JB, man.
No doubt.
That dude is the Fender guru, all because he was just searching for a sound.
Yeah.
It wasn't even like, hey man, I'm pretty good with electronics, or I can do this because he was like, I need this to sound a way, and he made it sound that way. And I'm like,
well, he has his own like
weirdo.
Bassman. He makes his Bassman, like the JB Bassman mod is a tweed and
he did that to a Bandmaster I had, which is basically the same as a Bassman, but it's one less gain stage or something.
Oh, okay. He just did that to Lyndon's Bassman.
Well, and the Bandmaster was in a 112 cab. I regret getting rid of it, but it was in a 112 cab.
You got rid of all your. This is your amp now.
Well, I still have 2 tube amps, and I still have.
Don't. That's a humble brag. I still got 2 tube amps.
Hey man, I can afford things. I got and they're custom, like I had them made for me and stuff.
Oh, the Zerker?
I have a Zerker, and I still have this heavily modded Blues Junior. Like I bought it, and I had all these mods done to it, like the Bill M mod, and then the Silence mod, and then the Reverb Tank mod, and
the Double Death Cap edition mod.
I put spikes on it and painted it purple. No, but it's this great Blues Junior.
I'm having a lot of trouble with my ears.
I noticed,
so far.
man. Yeah, you're falling apart.
That's great. It's quality production.
I never use it, and it's still up in Ohio. So I just
that's difficult to use something that is 10 hours away.
I've tried to spread some things. Right, like
you could just go home and.
Well, I left. There's a PV Special 130 just sitting behind my mom's couch. Like those amps are so cheap to find, but they're hard to find because they are sleepers. They're like great amps. Is
it like in the same school as like the 400s? And
it's a double Bandit. It's literally a Bandit, but like of that era though, like the 80s.
You were playing that downtown for a minute,
for a long time, yeah.
Yeah.
I have two of them though.
Oh, okay.
So the one I played downtown is now up in Cleveland,
Gotcha.
And the second one I bought off of Jamie Michael actually.
Shawn Michaels.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Brother.
Yeah, John Michael Montgomery's brother.
Got it.
I bought it off of him, and it had one of those like the EV12, but at the Eminence copy of that.
Oh, I don't know.
Right?
I don't know which one that is, but I know the EV speaker.
It is a honking 12.
That's a 200-watt speaker.
It is a 200-watt speaker, and it feels.
That's what.
It's a 200-pound speaker.
Oh yeah, I bet. That's what Sutterfield plays his Matchless through. Is one of those EVs.
Yeah, I know, man. They're insane.
He sounds really good, but for what I like, it's very dark. I don't know if that's something he's doing with his.
It's got to be because this one is like. So I took it out of the PV, and I put it in one of these little Weber 112. Right, it's smaller than that.
Oh wow!
I mean, it's if it's like this much on each side.
Right.
It's so. The cab is so small that I had to, and the speaker has enough of a honking magnet on it that I had to take the baffle out of the cabinet to insert the speaker. Like I had to take the cabinet apart to get it back to,
Oh, wow.
But so it's like this little tiny cabinet, and it weighs as much as a twin or something. You're just like,
just ceramic magnet.
It sits under my desk with a speaker cable, so I can just plug in and not, I can plug all of this in, and it's good to go.
That's cool.
But I mean, this amp right here is that Seymour Duncan Power Stage. This is 170 watts.
Digital watts, though. So what does that even mean?
It's solid state for sure, and it's Class D. But I don't know, man. I think this is comparable to 50 or 60 watt tube amp. You know what I mean? I can push.
Seems right.
I can push. Right here is where I run my cab live, and that's like
That's just bass, middle, treble controls.
Yep. And the funny thing is there's no preamp for this. This is a preamp, but it's not like the preamp what you would normally think. You're just kind of affecting the power amp tone. I know that's weird, but a preamp will kind of boost a signal and all that, and this doesn't really do that.
Interesting.
So yeah, I mean, it's nice because you can do these small tweaks, for especially since I'm using a Helix, which
right.
I'm sure you will insert at some point into the.
We'll get to that.
Yeah, but so
one thing at a time. Music.
Yeah, so I'm using the preamps on that, and this just kind of powers it, and I can just make small adjustments. You know what I mean? I've tried to run my guitar direct into this, and it's a little dark.
Yeah.
So like a BB preamp in front of this, like an exotic BB, would sound great. Or like the RC boost or whatever.
Yeah.
Like any one of those would just murder in front of this.
Sure. Oh, I think it's the air conditioner. I hear something.
This has a fan.
Oh, that's probably what it is. Okay.
Actually, I can do this.
It's that.
Yep.
Okay.
But it's got a little computer fan right there. It's digital, man. What do you want,
Oh, I thought an airplane was flying over. I just didn't know what was going on.
Just sitting out here watching airplanes, man.
Yeah, you're sitting out here watching airplanes, man.
They started making a 200-watt version of this.
You have one of those where there's right?
What?
I thought you were getting one of those.
No, so I had one. I was a beta tester for them, and I didn't like it. I wasn't a big fan of like the things that they added versus what this one does, and it's bigger, and I was like, eh. But they also make a 700 watt rack mount, and that's meant for like Kemper stuff. Like the Kempers have built-in, but some of them.
What does the wattage do?
What do you mean?
If you said it's built for Kemper stuff.
Well, no, I mean like it's built for like running, like your Helix and your Axe Effects and your Kemper. Like if you get the 700 watt, it's stereo, so you can run two separate cabs, or cool. Like it's bigger for that because you're looking to run 412s.
You can come left, right out of your.
Absolutely, yeah, you can do that, cool. Yeah, and like and you're running 412s usually, or bigger cabs for bigger stages. If I were touring with an artist, I would 100% have a rack with a Helix head and a power amp in it. You know what I mean? Like that, instead of the floorboard. Like I would absolutely do that.
Yeah, but then what do you have on the floorboard?
It's just a smaller version of this. They have two options,
it's
right?
Like a foot controller.
Yeah, it's a foot controller. Yeah, and then you would use
probably a smaller screen and no controls.
Yeah, exactly. But it still has the scribble strips and stuff, so it's like it's about the same. That's actually the first one I had, and I don't know if you remember this, but you and I were playing at Paradise, and I had just traded into getting like a Helix rack mount, and I was like, I don't want this, right? But I didn't want the other piece of gear that I had more. So my disdain for that piece of gear was way less than the Helix.
Sometimes the lesser of two evils.
So I plug it in and I'm messing with it, and I find out, how to use it as opposed to like plugging directly into the front end of an amp.
Right.
And I was running into the effects loop of a Special 130, and I just dialed in a normal deluxe reverb tone, and it was so good that I brought it to the gig, and I just put it on top, and I plugged my pedal board right into it. And like, that's a little bit, wasteful of what this is capable of. But after about a week of doing that, I just went and bought this.
Yeah. Like, what else can I do?
Yeah. Well, this is like a better option. And I was like, oh my God. And I actually kept that rack mount for like about a year, and I recorded a ton with it. But
boy, it is about exactly the same size as my pedal board too.
Yeah. No, it'll fit on a PT2.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, man.
Gear and beer.
You're still using a real speaker cabinet, and for our purposes today, we're running through the aux.
Yeah, which is the same. It's as good as, for sure.
Honestly, those IRs are they're fantastic.
I know, yeah.
So I'd like to hear it. So let's talk about this guitar real quick, and then we'll move into.
Oh, this whole thing? This little old thing?
I remembered to start the GoPro this time, which is good because we're going to be moving to that aux.
Hey, start the GoPro.
to that Helix.
Start the GoPro, idiot.
Hey, so you guys remind me to start the GoPro real quick.
Can mail in and tell them to start the GoPro.
Did you know you didn't notice my T-shirt? It's pretty out there and pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome, yeah.
It's you've seen Jake Gammon's similar, same dude.
It's that same dude yeah. All right, well, here's the little old.
So he's got this for listeners. There are far more watchers than there are listeners, but people still do listen, like 6 of them.
All 6. My mom's one of them. She can't figure out how to get it on the screen.
It's definitely the less than ideal way to enjoy this podcast because we do
you want to see
the video.
Yeah.
But I listen to it just and editing and stuff, and it works from an editing standpoint as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it makes. I mean, if you're driving on the road, you don't always have to see the thing. It's nice. Sure. It's nice to hear it if you're in that context.
Exactly.
But like, obviously, when you're talking about gear, and for people that are gear heads and nerds like us, like seeing that thing is.
Well, especially because that's a lot of our purposes with the GoPro is to show all the things.
Yeah.
And
well, because in reality, when you hear records, you don't get to see what was played on it. But anytime you do,
right, and whenever we land that Polliner sponsorship,
yes,
we're going to start. Hopefully, I'd like to add at least one camera because Lyndon has an exact same camera as I do that we use on him, And if I could get a camcorder that's a little nicer lens for the main shot, and then use that for the pedal board, and then like one for Matt Krause's podcast, Boo just happened to be here, so we had him over there on the couch, but I didn't have a camera. I tried to have the GoPro on him, but for some reason it didn't work. But in those instances...
Did you mic him up, though? Did he so you got to talk. You got to join in.
Totally.
Yeah, that's great.
And, well, it was hilarious. We had not done that before, and I thought it would be kind of problematic in editing, but it seemed okay.
Yeah.
Matt's good at mic control, and,
he's been doing that podcast for what?
Sure,
I mean...
5 or 6 years.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it is awesome. My working drummer, check it out.
Yeah, check it out, bro. He's also in our band.
Check it out.
Pops.
Yeah, he's in our band, Pops and Pans.
Pops and Pans.
old Mac Rouse.
Oh man, that's brilliant.
Anyway, so you've got this fake Gibson that's a lawsuit guitar.
Well, no, it's not. Here's the thing.
Oh, it's not?
Here's the crazy thing about it. So now I've heard 3 different stories. The story that I always was introduced to was that this company in Japan was making knockoff Gibsons, right? Everyone does it. That's why that lawsuit era. Ooh, that's a good one too.
It was. It's the perfect note.
It's got some, F sharp.
Like
most things are F sharp.
Most things are F sharp.
Yeah, there's a lot of sounds that I hear are in the F sharp. Charlie Pluth on TikTok is always like, oh, what is that? That's an F sharp, because he's got perfect pitch or whatever.
Play that. That just immediately sounded really good in my ears. So, okay, now that I'm done interrupting, now tell us what this is.
Okay, so the way that I always heard it was that there's a company like making knockoff Gibsons. It's everyone did it. Ibanez did it. They made Fenders, and Charvel was doing that even. Like everyone was doing it, right? And Gibson was shutting them down left and right because that's what the lawsuit thing was about. And apparently they realized that they needed an in for the Japanese market because they didn't have one. Right? So instead of shutting this company down, they bought them. Oh. Right? So it's Orville.
Because they liked the work they were doing.
They're like, oh man, this is actually really great, and like it's Orville by Gibson. It says it on the headstock. So like true. It's literally owned by, and that was around the same time that Gibson started making Epiphones in Japan. Oh, which the model of Epiphone went up and it was better, and and the Epiphone headstock kind of had the Gibson.
Totally.
It looked like
they started.
Yeah,
pushing it that direction.
Exactly, and that's what I understood. Now I've also heard that Gibson started the factory. Like they were like, well, we want to do this, so they just started it. I find it hard to believe that that's the case. It's way more believable that there's a ton of lawsuit stuff going on, and this company was nailing it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Sure.
So this is an '88 Orville by Gibson, and apparently it's supposed to be a '59 reissue.
Okay.
Right. And the one thing that I've read about,
and it's totally the way it comes. You haven't changed anything.
The only thing that
you haven't changed anything from a functional.
The only thing, so the way that I got it, these are Burstbucker 1s.
Oh, okay. I love those.
Yeah, so do I. I didn't know that.
It's in my Les Paul.
I hate Burstbucker 2s and I hate Burstbucker 3s. So,
they're too high.
I was like, I'm going to hate Burstbuckers, but no, I've never tried the 1s, and these are amazing. It does, though. The original pickups are the circuit board Gibson pickups.
I think it probably has to do with just the vibe of the wood, because my maple, BB1 bridge that I have in my Les Paul is still pretty dark, and the neck is too. My Les Paul, which is in Texas, unfortunately, or I would maybe have you compare the two, but the neck pickup, no matter what I do, no matter how I stagger the output of the pickups, because I've tried a lot of different combinations, it's just twice as loud. I mean, maybe not twice. It's so much louder than the bridge pickup.
Really?
It's so much
You
louder.
Can't get them level. And well, I mean, you can see...
I've raised poles and pickups up and down, and just
but even that, and you can see on this how this is so much higher.
That's pretty drastic.
But... It's level, and it does that thing.
Well, and the farther away you can get a neck pickup, the better, because it clears that shit up so much.
Well, the neck on this is Yeah. And these strings are a little bit dead, but
I was about to say the strings sound a little dark, but
sometimes there's this happy spot where your strings are starting to they're about dead, but it sounds like 1960.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Certain
like
things you're playing, you're like, oh.
Well, I mean. Like that, their strings were not new, you know.
No, they were only changed when broken.
Freddie King was playing some Les Paul or 335 with, essentially, they had become flat wounds, you know.
Man, I just changed my P bass strings, and it's like a new instrument.
Yeah, well, yeah, and it's probably got a bunch more bite, and
it's actually got more bottom, which is weird.
This the neck or the bridge on this. Even with these dead strings, still has that, like, the maple top has that spank.
Yeah, for sure.
You know?
It definitely has a great spanky sound.
Oh, yeah.
It's just like, it's got enough... and that's how I like my guitars too. That's why I like that SG and any of the humbuckers that
those are notoriously spanky guitars.
They're the Gibson Tele.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that's one long plank of wood.
I want that clear sound that I can make as dark if I need it and really do the.
Have you ever played like a
thing.
58, like a real 58?
No, I've played a real 57.
Well, so yeah, I mean, you're still kind of in the same vein. Even I played 158 and I played 159.
58s are like the outliers, right? Everybody loves 57s and 59s.
Yeah, but the 58 is the same guitar.
It is?
Yeah, it's the same as I think it's the 59 that, like, it's the difference in, like, some of the wood look. The way the wood looks, but the 58s are apparently it's one way or the other, right? It's the 59 is like the most popular because it looks the coolest, but it's the same exact parts and it's like essentially the same wood, just instead of like quilted or, you know, like you're not getting the flame or whatever.
Sure, okay.
But yeah,
I don't know enough because that's just so far out of my price range.
Oh, absolutely.
Even for the R7, R8, and R9s.
Well, that's the thing. I've been looking for a Gibson for years and years, and every time I look at like those, it's like, oh, at $4,900, and I'm like.
By the way, I put whiskey in your cup.
Put some whiskey in your water.
Sugar in your tea.
What's all these crazy questions? Yeah, you know, Randy Newman wrote that.
I did.
Of course. After I found out, I was like, yeah, well, that.
Open up the window, sucker. Let me catch my breath. That sounds like a Randy Newman.
He said,
line.
That cigarette you smoke about scared me half to death.
About to scare me half to death. Open up the window, sucker. Let me catch my breath. Mama told me. Sorry.
I played a 58 and a 59 once in my life, and they were the spankiest Les Pauls, more spanky than this. It was insane.
There's something, and I don't know that this is like
we're talking about wood again here.
Well, I think.
You know?
See, I was just about to say I don't think it's just wood.
No, of course
it's
not.
definitely partially wood, but the degradation of the magnetic pull on the magnets and the pickups over time, it just.
But that's also why
it's wider.
That's
and wider.
why pickup makers now, like the real weirdos, they'll do things like they'll take Alnico magnets and put them in the oven to demagnetize them. Or Von Scow magnetizes his own magnets. He buys unmagnetized Alnico rod, and then he magnetizes them.
Wow.
He actually, so I have a set of Von Scows that I took out of that Gold Sparkle Telly. I need to put them back in because they're great. But I went over to his house, and he goes, all right, the pickups are done, and he magnetized them while I was sitting there. I was like, and then he's like, oh, that one's too much. So he kind of like did a thing to like negate it. I was like, what? He's like, yeah, it's pretty cool, ain't it? And he's like such a nerd. Like that's the thing about like these new pickup makers. And
I don't know who that guy is.
You should meet. He lives here.
Okay, I would love to.
Yeah, you should absolutely. I'll make that connection for you.
I'd like to meet him and then maybe have him on here.
And he's like nice and quirky, like all guitar and electronics guys are. He's like, yeah, man, you know.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah. You should also John Levan. He's the guy.
I know that name, but
he does all my guitar work. He's a great luthier. But he's been here for years and years, and he's seen and worked on everybody's guitar. So
he's your post Shelley guy.
Yeah, but Shelley moved back to town, so I'm going to start going to Shelley for, I'm going to split my time between them because I love Shelley.
But you like John too?
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. When Shelley moved, it forced me to go to John.
Do they have like strengths?
Yeah, well, I think.
Or are they just like legit?
I don't know. Like John does a Taylor course, a guitar building course, 2 or 3 times a year he hosts.
That's
so
cool.
he can build from scratch, right? So that's a big strength.
Sure.
And I think that, Shelley could probably do that. I've never seen him have to do that. But,
right.
Building an acoustic instrument, I mean, your buddy Greg is like,
Dusty does fantastic stuff.
Yeah, so when he got
it's
into
like art.
But when he got into the
art.
acoustic game just recently,
like 2 years ago.
Yeah, and I followed as he made that first, and it was like, whoa, man.
He's got a way. Man, before he made guitars, he was an amp.
That's what
builder.
you told me.
And his amps, I don't know why. I mean, I honestly, I know he's told me. I can't remember why he said he stopped making them.
Probably because it's so difficult. Making a cab.
They were better than his guitars.
I know. I'm just saying, like my buddy Ken Zerker, who builds amps, luckily he's mostly retired, and him and his wife just kind of take their time.
Sure.
But like they build the cab and they do finger joints and they wrap the cab, and he does his own circuit.
Full quality control.
Full
I like
quality,
it.
man. Like, and if the Tolex isn't quite glued right, they'll pull it up and they'll do it again. Like,
well, okay. So we got sidetracked, but that's okay. But
we're talking about gear.
Yeah, I know. Play us some sounds. So this is what everyone's hearing. We have.
Oh, you know what?
We have. Oh, so what we were just hearing was only the aux.
Only the aux, or only the Helix.
The Helix. I
didn't even realize that. I thought it sounded a little quiet. There we go.
It is. So now we have the Helix direct out, as well as the Seymour. What do they call it?
The power stage.
Seymour power stage through the aux with a 412 V30 57 and 121 super standard.
So I'm
setup.
using what you're hearing on the direct out of the Helix is a Vox cab with two Celestion, a silver and a blue, and then a 57 and a Royer. So it's literally the same thing, just They
sound very similar.
Now I think that obviously sidetrack. I think that the aux is untouchable, right?
It kind of is. What I've played.
Yeah, no, but so I think that the Helix does these, they have the IRs and all that too that you can get from the same joints.
Right.
And like they're so close, especially if you spend time with them, which as a guy who wants to use a live cabinet most of the time, I haven't spent as much time as I should.
Sure.
But
well, Lyndon, he has one of those HX stomps on his board, and he put his own IRs in there, and it sounds pretty good, man.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But you can only, in my opinion, you can only use direct out stuff like that in like in-ear only situations.
Absolutely.
I don't want to use it through a wedge or anything stupid.
I'll
like
switch.
that.
I'm going to switch patches here in a second, and I might turn this back off and show you. I figured out a way to add a tile reverb at the end of your chain on your direct only patches to give you, because then you can control it and it'll sound like you're backing a mic up. It's like a trick.
Little room sound.
Yeah, it's a trick,
Sure.
and it makes it feel right in your ears.
Interesting.
Because otherwise, you're just like, yeah, sure, it's reverb, but it's not.
Yeah. So right now, you were telling me earlier, you've got a IR on the XLR out that does not go to the
quarter-inch out.
To the quarter-inch
Yeah, so
out.
the way that I run my rig is I run a cab with this Seymour Duncan power stage, and I'll go quarter out into this, and then if any front-of-house guy says, hey, I want to also run an XLR.
direct out,
so and actually if you look down at the Helix from the when you in edit, you can do this.
Yeah.
The signal, you can see down here at the very bottom, there's two outputs.
Copy.
And one of them just goes quarter-inch, and the other one is just XLR. So you can split them like that, and I could even split further if I needed to.
That's cool.
You can do left and right on.
I know it does a lot of stuff that I don't know about. We had Tony on here. He obviously knows a whole bunch of that kind of crap, and I think that you're the only other person that's had one. Again, I've used in jam scenarios. I've used London's HX just based on my setup or whatever. And it sounds good, but yours just seems way more versatile.
Well, it's funny because I didn't want to switch.
Right.
Like, I was the guy who, like, instead of me, like, being on their side.
You used to just, like, rebuild your pedal board because you like to rebuild your pedal board.
I used to, like, that was a weekly occurrence. People would go, oh, Rob has a day off. I bet he comes back with a new pedal board. And I would. And same with amps, man. I was, like, constantly getting and trading amps. And I was just always that way.
Sure.
And I didn't want to like this. And at every turn, I'd be like, I'm not going to like it. I don't care. And then it would just blow me away. Now, don't get me wrong. There are times whenever you're going to play a 66 Deluxe Reverb with a Tele plugged directly into it, or and maybe a Nobles between, and you're just like, oh my God. You can't achieve that anywhere.
Classic vibe.
Yeah, you can't achieve that anywhere. But I'm going to say, man, like, I've added, like, I use compression right at the top of my chain, so it kind of gives this little bit of pushback that you're going to get from a tube amp anyway.
Sure.
And just things like that, and running a live cabinet kind of changes the whole game, you know?
Sure.
So you end up with, like, what I think is like a super classic tone, you know?
Hard to argue with that.
Yeah, man. I mean, you know, that's this. And then the ability to have many, many different amps at your fingertips. That's a deluxe with, like, just a little bit of gain and slapback. And their version of Dumble, right? Everyone has an idea of what Dumbles do.
Sure.
Personally, I don't like the Dumble clean sound. No, I like them. I just don't. I can't use it. That's a wrong way to think. Like when John Mayer and stuff uses it. Yeah, you can't argue with that clean. But I'm saying I can't use it. You know.
Sure.
So I use a Dumble like really amped up and like overdriven and kind of that rock and roll thing.
Sure.
And like.
And that's no pedal effects. That's just IR overdrive.
And that's kind of the thing. In a perfect world, wouldn't it be like if you're in the studio, you need overdrive, you would try your best to get that out of your Marshall.
That's what I like to track overdrive.
So you're like, oh, I need overdrive. And then sometimes you have to use a pedal or whatever, but
and there's like certain
overdrive sound. The Nobles does a thing, right?
And like I don't have it on my board, but the full drive 2 version 2 is into a matchless. It's like it's
a thing.
That's like three of the most popular Keith Urban records.
Right. So I mean, obviously, in a perfect world, you would get to change amps all the time, and I think that's my approach to this. Is I have enough presets that kind of do different things. You know, like so you got that rock that. No pedals, and then I can add pedals. I can get as gainy as I.
And you added a couple of King of Tones on there.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's both sides of a King of Tones. Yeah, and man, when they did that update and put that on here, I was using clones for everything, just gained up.
Sure.
The King of Tone was like, oh, so I replaced it in every patch. I have a clean country sound, if you will, and I used a twin for a long time, and I kept finding that I was like, it's real boomy, and I didn't like it. So what I ended up going with is a JC 120, right? A Roland jazz chorus, super clean, and then with a little compression and like the
it's
right
bitey.
Yeah, and that's the thing that you're kind of missing out of the twin for me. Now live a twin can get bitey. On here it's kind of hard to, you know.
It doesn't that IR is just not quite as adept to reproducing that.
Well, it
thing.
also kind of sounds like a 65 twin or a 66 twin that breaks up a little bit earlier than.
I don't know what's going on with my eye. I'm so sorry.
It's got an eyeball in it.
Something keeps poking me in my eye. I don't know what it is.
Them beautiful long eyelashes.
They're beautiful.
I use a slapback a lot because it kind of gives a little depth and
room sound.
Yeah, when you're playing country stuff, you know, like that slapback kind of is
that DD6 stays on my board.
Yeah. So I mean, like this is like what I would consider to be my twin reverb sound, but it's a JC 120. When we play, as a matter of fact, when we play that song, got that thing, you know.
That's Blame It On Your Heart?
Blame It On Your Heart, yeah. And then one other sound that
Blame It On Your Heart by the famous Kelsey Ballerini.
yeah, you know, the great country singer Kelsey Ballerini. My little brother's an idiot, and
That's true.
He's
also a good musician.
There's a, you know, remember the Joe Dirt joke? He had a T-shirt that said "I choked Linda Lovelace," right?
Oh, I don't.
That was a whole. It's a hilarious thing, right? You know, and my little brother was confused one time, and he's like talking about Patty Loveless, and he goes, "Isn't she the porn star?" And I was like, "No." And so from then on, he's like, "I choked Patty Loveless."
I don't. Is Linda Lovelace a porn star?
She was, yeah.
Okay.
It was her movie was called Deep Throat. It's a whole thing.
Yes, I've heard that referenced.
Sorry to all you fine Christian folk out there who I just offended, but
My apologies to my mother, who probably doesn't watch this.
The other sound that I really love on this is an AC30, because we're doing a bunch of Tom Petty stuff downtown, and it's its own thing.
I'm about to say, if you're playing classic rock, you got to have a British sound.
Yeah, absolutely. So like, that Dumble thing does the rock and roll thing, or like the blues, but like the AC30 is like, Get
the chime.
Yeah, and I'm very, very like conscious of making sure that that's there.
Sure. Play the Listen to Her Heart riff with that, but that sounds exactly right.
That's right, and as a matter of fact, I cut a record a couple years ago with a 12-string, just a Dano 12-string I have, and everything I did was that. I think I even capoed high to kind of give like the, the
further shimmer.
And I was like, oh my God, it's chimey, But yeah, I mean,
cool, man.
I think the Helix is great for that stuff. And like, even this like kind of gets into that, I also use this sound for that.
Oh, I can hear in this setting that there's a octave up on that.
Oh no, so that's I accidentally turned on a delay that I.
Oh.
This is one of these delays. Yeah, that's that.
That's your answer to the timeline. Oh,
right. You know what I mean? Like anytime
I recognize it now, but
anytime you're gonna do that kind of stuff, that modern thing, I'm not good at delay, so I just kind of built a praise and worship sound, and that's what it's called, praise and worship.
Fair enough.
But that vibrato that I put on there is that that's that Alanis Morissette tune,
Yeah.
So you have all the effects at your feet. You have all the amps at your feet. You can do cool things where, like, you program a pedal to turn the volume of the amp up instead of, like, using an overdrive pedal.
Oh,
you know what I mean? I don't know if you're hip to, like, Neil Young's the black box that he had on top of his amp, but the deal was it sat on top of this 59 Tweed, whatever, amp that he played. And with foot switches that were technically analog, he could hit a foot switch and these little things would turn the knobs of his amp. So on the fly, he could hit this thing and it would go and turn the volume up.
So it's just instant gain saturation.
Exactly, and like cool. That's the idea you can do with this. And I'm lazy and I haven't quite got there, but I've only owned it for 4 years, so...
Well, I mean, it really sounds as good as anyone that I've heard use the Helix for everything.
Sure, yeah.
Tony, for example, uses it, and he sounds great, but he does a very different thing. And that you guys just use it completely.
Yeah,
different
absolutely.
ways,
Yeah.
You know?
And it's
So-
funny. That's why the guys at Line 6 always get along with me because they're so intrigued that I'm using it the way I am.
Sure.
They're like, wait, what? And I'm like, yeah, I use it on Broadway, and we don't have set lists because you can program things like that into
Sure,
this.
totally.
You can just run through a set list, you know, and I don't use it that way. I use it on the fly for every single night, and it does everything I need it to do.
Well, they sound good, but I'm in pre-Rob where I'm like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, I would never argue it either. Like, I'm not trying to sell anybody on it.
Sure.
I'm also the only thing I'm trying to do is get people to not make fun of me for using it.
Well, I think that you could pretty easily shut them up with, if not your tone, you're playing. So
Sure. Yeah.
that's the way I see that. You are listening to the Gear and Beer Podcast. Today's episode is sponsored by Bobby Jam's Kitchen. Want to take your home cooking to the next level? Need new recipe ideas or meal inspiration? Like, follow, and subscribe to Bobby Jam's Kitchen on YouTube and Instagram at Bobby Jam's Kitchen. Cook your food and eat it.
You wore the same hat.
I knew you would wear yours, so I wore
you
mine
did.
on purpose. So tell me about this shell pink. That's not shell pink, but it's pink.
Salmon. It's like almost shell.
Did you just say salmon to be funny? Please?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, actually, I read a thing. Like, I say it to be funny, but I read a thing that when you're pronouncing the color, you say salmon.
Interesting.
I don't know if that's true, but it's one of those things where I say it to be funny and I can't stop.
It isn't true for me.
Yeah. What color is it? Salmon.
Pink. Cheers.
Cheers, buddy.
Cheers to salmon.
So I was at NAMM a few years ago, walking past a booth, and this was sitting there. And
Just noticing the funky neck pickup. Sorry,
yeah, it's a
go
Charlie
ahead.
Christian.
Okay.
It's a Lawler Charlie Christian. So I saw this guitar sitting there, and my first instinct was,
Shabbat.
yeah, it's pink. I don't like that. That's dumb. I don't like that. And then I passed by it again, and every time my inner monologue is like, it's dumb. By the third time, I'm like, I should check it out.
I keep noticing it.
I should check it out, right?
Yeah.
So I go to the booth, I check it out. Avi Shabbat, the guy that builds these, loves me, right? So I play for an hour, and then he's like, please come back tomorrow. And I come back the next day, and I sit in his booth, and we talk, and I play, and he's got whiskey, and everyone would come up, and they'd be like,
This is at summer or winter?
winter out in Anaheim, and everyone come up, and I'd be like, hey, sorry, let me get out of the way, and then Avi would go, no, you play this and give them the demo. So he he utilized, and I go, cool, man. And then I come back to town, and I really wanted to buy this, and I called him. He's like, man, I sold it at NAMM. Well, then it fell through, and he called me. He goes, hey, I have that guitar, and I'll sell it to you for like this, right? It's like
Buddy deal.
way cheaper for a complete handmade. He doesn't buy any other than pickups and everything. He hand shapes and hand makes the bodies and everything.
Oh, okay.
And it's like I don't know if you can see, but it's the snake head.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
it comes with the Lawler Charlie Christian set, which has always been this neck pickup, right? But then Lawler also did a matching single coil. It's a rail pickup. I didn't like it, so I changed this to a TV Jones Starfire or something, right? It's their Telly line. Matt Lee uses them too.
Oh, okay.
And it's the telliest Telly, and then
Show me.
yeah, prove it.
That sounds real good.
But then you also get the Charlie Christian thing.
Yeah, that's definitely that dark jazzy thing.
Yeah, man. And
But it's still got like an airiness to it. That guitar's got some air.
I was going to change the full set of pickups, right? And I was like, I'm just going to put a set of Tellys in this. And then I was like, wait a minute. I have 6 Telecasters. this needs to stay, like something you
It'd
get
be
your
one thing
own-
if it sounded bad.
No, yeah, but you get these. It's a very noisy pickup.
Is it?
If you play this downtown, it just, but
Hell, you play damn near anything downtown, and it's doing something stupid.
I use this in the studio constantly, especially for that. And I have a Tele with Bigsby on it, so I use that for stuff too. But yeah, I mean, this.
Is there no mid selection?
Yeah, well, so both of them. Yeah, let's see. It's got a little quack.
Yeah, that's a cool sound. That's a pretty close sound to like a Strat middle pickup.
I guess that would make sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Marty Stewart in his famous Tele from what's his name, Clarence White. The neck pickup is a 54 Strat neck pickup.
Oh,
So like, how cool is that? You know what I mean? Like this iconic Tele, but they put a 54 neck Strat.
that's it. See, I'm into those kinds of things. I only got the 2 Teles, and they're. One of them just a standard, and one of them is the Keith Richards 54.
That Nash.
Yeah, with the. I don't think I just got mixed feelings on that neck humbucker. Do me this favor, real quick. It's not over here. Never mind. I don't know where it is. I thought it was up here. I'm not going to go looking for it. I was going to say compare the neck pickups between that Charlie Christian and the.
What's the neck pickup in that? It's a humbucker, right, or a mini bucker?
It's some sort of Lawler humbucker.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is.
Jason
specifically.
Lawler is kind of doing the Lord's work with pickups, man. I don't use a bunch of his stuff, but everything I've heard, I've liked.
It's the only guitar that I have that has Lawlers in it, and I know people have been Lawlers and Fralins is what you hear. That's what you've heard about for 2 decades.
I had Fralins in I had the Danny Gatton Fralins.
Yeah.
The rail pickups. Other than this,
is it Fralin that makes those Joe Barden pickups too?
Oh, that's who it was. It was Barden, not Fralin. That's my fault.
Okay.
Guys, I'd like to send out an apology to Lindy Fralin and Joe Barden.
Hey, guys. Hey.
I'm so sorry about that. I'm gonna go end it now.
I'm gonna edit that out.
It was the Barden. No, don't. They need to know how big of an idiot I am. I had the Barden pickup, the Danny Gatton Barden pickups, and I did not like them at all.
Tony Campanovo has a guitar that has those in there.
They're like,
they work way better for that kind of thing than he does.
Absolutely,
It's very dark
true,
and buttery.
Yeah, it's a very true sound. But as soon as you get into that Tele thing, if you do this on a rail pickup, everyone's head goes,
Yeah.
Well, that's enough of this stupid gear.
Let's ask some stupid questions.
Yeah, ask me dumb questions, man. I've been waiting.
While I'm looking it up, I already know what the first one is because these are pretty much the same questions that I ask everybody. The first one, many of them are either or questions. Okay. And the first one is Metallica or Megadeth.
Metallica.
That's always a pretty quick answer for most people.
You know why? Because I didn't.
Because you haven't listened to enough Megadeth. That's
a big reason. That's a really big reason. Also, I think Dave Mustaine is kind of an asshole. Like, don't get me wrong. I think the other guys are too.
He definitely comes across that way.
Well, he's also still like real butthurt about whatever happened between them back in the day.
No,
he's still vocal about that to this day. And I'm like,
he said that his whole drive for Megadeth
was to get back at them.
Yeah. And what an excellent fuel source that turned out to be.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that Megadeth is cool. Obviously, I don't listen to as much like hard rock as like, most people, or like maybe, some other people, but
like me.
But I do like it, and like
I listen to so much music.
I love. Well, so do I. But I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, I dip my toe into like that Metallica thing, and I love that stuff.
To jacuzzi, baby.
That early Metallica stuff, especially like up to like Load.
I would say even up to Reload.
Yeah,
kind of lost me after that.
No, but like that's where they didn't lose me or anything. I just kind of quit around there. You know, the Black Album was like a thing of my childhood that kind of changed. I was like, "Ooh, you can do that, and nothing else matters." What?
Man, that album changed a lot for a lot of people.
Yeah. So I mean,
it's fantastic.
That's great, and I think they're still great. That they're still kind of like kicking ass. So yeah.
You know what Megadeth has done that Metallica hasn't done? that's pretty badass, and that's record a record with Vinnie Colaiuta on drums.
Sure. Yeah.
I forget who's playing bass, but it's another guy where you're like, I totally see it, but would have never picked that name out of a hat. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's another one of those session magicians of, folklore status at this point. Okay, my next question is jazz or metal?
Jazz. Which is funny because when I was up to like 24 or even like 23, I would have definitely said metal because I didn't understand jazz. Like,
I don't know that I understand jazz still. But
it's not that I understand even how to play it or anything. It's just
I was just being self-deprecating.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're also the guy that does jazz gigs, and I'm not.
Hey, well.
I used to do jazz gigs, but they were very much blues jazz gigs. I was like, hey, check out this cool hollow body I have.
Even that's risky around
and I know,
here.
yeah, I know a 265, whatever, a sub of 3 in there or whatever. But so my a band I was in, the lead singer, his name's J. Scott Franklin, one of the best songwriters I know. He was a jazz trumpet player. Like in this band, we were a country band, and he played acoustic and sang. But his whole identity before that was jazz trumpet. And I was like, I don't like jazz. I don't understand it. And he goes, that's cool, man. And then he shows up at band practice and he gives me Kinda Blue, 1958, right?
Yeah.
And he goes, just go home and check this out, right? And I was like, oh my God.
That's dipped my toe for sure.
That's what I'm saying.
That's
it changed.
a great place to
all
start.
blues kind of was like, oh, I get this.
It's so approachable.
And then we kind of
but still just amazing.
It's so heavy still, but you on the surface, it's kind of like a great movie or a TV show where on the surface you're like, yeah, it's great. But if you really want to dig in, there's also so much more.
Totally.
And then we kind of moved through some things, and then he hit me to Bill Frisell. Who lives here? There's a record Bill Frisell has called.
He lives here again? I thought he moved.
Did he? Well, I thought he moved here. Or I thought he lived here.
Who knows?
He had a record back, I don't know how many years ago, called Nashville, and it's a great record. And it's also one of those where it gets real far out, but there's also so much cool melodic right down the middle. And for a guy who was,
I've never heard him stretch like I expected based on the way people talk about his music. And I
have you dug really into it though?
Well, I was just about to say I've not spent just blocks of hours, but people say check out this record, and I've checked it out, and I can in almost all cases I just couldn't get into it.
Well, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I get that. I mean, there's the taste thing for sure.
And some of that just comes down to the moment and the headspace you're in, etc. And
yeah. So, jazz over metal, you know what I mean?
Fair enough. So, my next question would be, and I think I probably know the answer to this because I'm probably going to remove this question, but stranded or solid core cables?
Ooh.
Almost nobody makes solid core cables anymore.
The only one that I know about.
They sound better.
Was the hex core. I can't remember the name. Tyler Powers was using them, and Jay Cott was using them, and so, I mean, it has to be stranded only because
durability standpoint.
Well, no, not only that, I don't have as much. I can't get solid core. I can't afford that.
Well, yeah, for sure, but they'll break so easily.
Oh, okay.
That's the problem. So they sound clearer.
What's it called?
But people stop making them because they're just too brittle.
Well, there's a company that Tyler and those guys were using, right? And Tyler had the speaker cable from the back of his amp to the speaker in the amp, right? He had that done by them, and that costs $200 for that much. Jay Cott bought a 20-foot cable off of eBay from somebody for a couple $100, right? And he's like, oh, I got this for cheap for what it is. And then he called them, and he's like, but I want to cut it down into 2. Because I don't need a 20-foot, I need 2 10-foots. And they go, well, don't do it yourself. You cannot do it yourself. You have to send it to us. And I was like, I've never.
It makes sense sometimes, I think, to do that from in a
maybe studio for sure. Yeah.
But if it's something that you're taking anywhere
and rolling up,
or someone might step on,
absolutely.
The problem became with the solid core is that they are extremely undurable.
Sure, yeah.
Endurable, or however you say it.
Non-durable? There we go.
Non-durable.
Yeah, I mean that's a good question, but at the same time, like
I think my next question, it really gets down to the nitty gritty, and that question is tacos or pizza.
Tacos.
It's the correct choice, but it's a hard choice.
Well, I mean, I've had some really great pizza in my life, but I've also had tacos that you've made that have been probably some of the best that I've ever had in my life.
I just wanted to say, I know you have somewhere you have to go and something you have to do, but you really screwed this up because
I know.
All guests get a meal prepared as well as I can prepare it.
Well,
except for you because you don't have time.
I will say this though, when you and I were filming our podcast, I ate here once a week, and it was heaven sent. I get it.
I'm better now.
Hey, man, you were great back then. But yeah,
I'm better now.
Tacos are the right answer for most of the time. Also,
when you leave, I'm making burger buns. I'm going to make 2 different batches to compare. 2 different recipes. I'm going to find the perfect burger bun because I smoked some burgers last night.
Ah, dang it. What's your next question?
My next question is,
now that I'm thinking about
live or session?
Man, I'd say live because I'm definitely the way most comfortable, and I've had way more experience right? I've done a lot of sessions, but I've been playing live since I was 6. So live kind of has that, especially when the band is cooking.
There's something to be said for both, man. It's a tough choice.
Magic happens way more often for me live.
Sure.
Because in a session, especially in today's day and age, right? We're talking about like Nashville sessions. If we were talking
time constraints.
Yeah, if we were talking about,
it's a different thing.
Hey, we're in Aerosmith and we rented out the studio for 3 months and we didn't even have songs yet. Right? Everyone's like, Steven Tyler will write a song when we go to lunch. That's different. Like if I had that thing in the studio, that would be awesome. Hey, whatever, man, the record company's paying for this and we just getting high and we're just making stuff up and we have magic. That don't happen anymore, man.
Yeah, you can't afford it. No one can.
Now, on my record, when I recorded my record with Scotty Schultz and Johnny Stanton, who I think you had Johnny on here.
Johnny's been on here.
And Josh Schultz, which, Nashville Beef alumni right there.
Yep.
There were some magic moments in that. You know what I mean? We're playing and dude, I'm going to tell you what.
Well, it's one thing to go into a studio with unrehearsed songs, but you did it with guys that on an on stage level.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which changes everything.
And they'd played together an absurd amount, and I'd played with each of them an absurd amount. So we caught some magic, but I will say this.
I mean, you literally had brothers there. I know. So there's something to be said for that.
Yeah, and then also Johnny and Scotty had played in how many bands together?
Sure.
Sure. So, yeah, I mean, he's almost one of the brothers. So, yeah, live.
Single coil or humbucker?
Until my Orville, single coil would have been the answer, and I'd still probably say single coil because all my favorite country records are cut on a Tele, or maybe a Strat, because that Strat does the better Tele thing in the studio than the Tele does.
That's sometimes true.
Yeah, well, I always use the Strat when I really need chicken picking stuff in the studio because you get like a little spankier thing, right?
My dad's 63 works good for that. But my pieced together 90s Mexi Squire, which is American standard parts but weird measurements on them.
Yeah.
The pickups in that are super low output vintage style pickups, and that bridge is so bright and thin that it just can't help but sound like a Strat bridge pickup.
Sure.
You can you could throw an EQ pedal on it or something and have a Strat bridge pedal.
Does it have the tone connected to it, or is it?
Yeah, and you can darken it up, but
the reason I said that is because on the standard Strat thing, there's no tone on the bridge. That's an original.
I wired this one. I like,
That's
there's
how
some
it
really
should
bad
be.
solders on the
I have
inside of
my
there.
Strat is like a 60th anniversary.
I don't ever need a tone knob unless I'm trying to play a jazz gig. I don't need a tone knob on anything that isn't a bridge pickup.
I know, but I mean, when I got my Strat without the tone knob, there were instances where that was too ice picky. Now there's instances with overdrive or something that it works.
Yeah.
But if I'm playing like a clean sound, I need to back that off, or especially if I'm in like the 2 position,
See, I almost never like a rollback tone in any other position on a Strat.
Sure.
Because maybe it's just the ones that I have experience with, but
Sure.
the nature of the interaction of those pickups and the tone knob is always unpleasant.
Sure.
Like even for a jazz thing.
I've never had an
do it.
issue with that. Yeah, I've never had but also I don't play Strats except for in the studio. My Strat.
I was
is
playing
great.
that 63 downtown for like a solid couple of months.
Yeah, but that's a great guitar. I mean,
It's so weird to play, but it does some things very, very great.
but I will say this.
It was through this amp, and
Oh yeah, the woolly coats. Yeah,
I don't
come
know
on
if
now.
we see where that master is, but that's how I run that thing.
Well, yeah. I mean, isn't it pretty? Is it what 12 watts or something or 15?
I think it's 18.
Oh, 18. Okay. Yeah. So the idea of single coil is mostly that I want them to be, but I want them to be the telly thing. But this Les Paul changed my mind about that. So downtown, my guitars are noiseless now.
That's a fair
That
point.
is a huge thing. AJ's is terrible for noise,
The stage is terrible.
and I use my Les Paul. It's great.
No problem.
Yeah, and it's spanky, so it works.
If it
But
sounds good, who gives a shit?
80% single coil, 20% humbucker.
I don't know if you can do that on this board, but volume pedal before or after gain pedals.
You can absolutely do it. You can put the volume pedal anywhere you want.
I believe that. I just didn't know.
Yeah. And on my pedal boards, it was the king. I was the king of volume pedal after overdrive, after gains. Other than maybe a boost, like a boost pedal is at the end for me, right? It's gonna be even after reverb because I don't want to hit like a reverb pedal harder, right? So. That's a different question, but so volume pedal I would put after gains, and the reason is because you can turn your guitar all the way up, turn your volume pedal all the way up, and hit your gains, right? And then it sounds a certain way, and it hits the front of the amp a certain way.
Right.
But then you can also turn your volume on your guitar down and hit the front of the pedal a different way, or then you can also turn that all the way up and then turn your volume pedal down. You have so many gain stages,
Yeah. That's fair.
I've found I've tried it every way, I tried it at the beginning, I've tried it at the very end, and yeah, man, that's the one that you have all these different tonal options.
I like a volume pedal, but I don't ever.
Yeah, you don't even have one on your board.
I don't. I have one. I use it for steel.
What's weird is that before I got a volume pedal, I didn't even know that they really existed. And then I got one, and since that day, I've been addicted to it.
Well, I have a great one, and it sounds really good. And if I'm tracking something and I want to do a swells thing, I'm going to make it sound way better with a pedal than I am
your finger, yeah.
with my finger.
I remember I was 14 or 15 when I learned how to do that. Some old timer showed me, he's like, check this out. And for
That's
years,
such a hard technique.
I'm great at it on a telly. That was a thing of mine, was pedal steel stuff. I could fake that real well. And then I got a Les Paul, and you can't really do it, But
not on the bridge pickup anyway.
But also the volume pedals kind of helped.
No doubt. You already kind of answered this question, but do you use compression live? And you do, because you said you put it at the beginning of your signal so it feels a certain way.
I do, but now I'm using an LA2A, or their version of an LA2A, so it's a little bit more like a limiter than a compressor.
Sure.
Now on the country preset that I showed you earlier, there's an alternate Dynacomp, because sometimes you on that.
You want that super
you need real
over-compressed.
squishy, like that Brent Mason,
that 80s.
Yeah, it's got a sound.
Guitar.
It's got a tone. Yeah,
for sure. Since you're also a bass player, this question is applicable. And It's going to be funny because it's not the bass that you play, but jazz or precision?
P bass, 100%.
The Nashville sound.
So I play a Stingray because that's the nice bass that I have, right? Like I traded a Firebird to Mike Pasculi. You should have him on at some point too, because
Mikey P.
He is just a gear nut, you know.
That's true. He's got a bunch of crazy stuff, or at least he used to.
Yeah. He's got some great basses too, man. You'd really enjoy some of those Rickenbackers and all that stuff.
Oh yeah, he's got the cool stuff.
And he's got like old P basses and jazz basses. But regardless, I traded him that for the Stingray because I needed a 5-string that was worthy of like keeping up with modern music.
Yeah.
But I also have my first bass was a '67 Mustang, which is essentially the little
P-ish.
It's the little brother of a P bass, right?
Yeah.
But
it's
now,
often thumpier version.
dude,
of a P
I loved
bass.
it. And the bass I learned how to play on was that '67. The strings hadn't been changed in 20 years.
Oh, so it's like a James Jamerson
Dude, it was
special.
Yeah, P bass all the way.
So you already answered that question. We'll do this. We got time for 2 more questions. Okay,
two more.
So I'm going to skip all the way down to the last 2 questions, and actually, I'm calling an audible.
Okay.
What is your desert island piece of gear? If you go, you're stuck on a desert island.
Can it be like a guitar and amp combo, or does it have to be like one piece of gear?
We're going to assume you have an instrument.
Okay, right.
We're gonna assume that you're stranded on an island that has a tiki hut that you're playing a gig in,
and it has electricity.
Yeah.
Hey man, this is a desert island. You can't get off of here, but there's a perfect electric.
Yeah, we got your wall warts. Just come over here and just plug in.
It's 110 even, like, and you can have a brown box.
Totally.
Totally. I would say that, since I'm gonna have, there's a lot of alternates in this. Do I have an amp? Do I get to like choose that, or like? Because like let's say that it's
it's kind of like a veiled favorite amp question.
Sure, I think so. Yeah, I think it would be a super reverb, like a 66 super, and my favorite Tele.
Yeah.
That whole thing is like every sound.
Sure.
Like it's the reverb is so lush, and like if you're feeling pretty, you can play that Stevie Ray tune Lenny, right? Or you can turn that down a little bit and turn the mids up and get like a Stevie Ray thing. So
sure,
yeah, super reverb, 66 super reverb desert island amp.
Okay, I'll probably change the way I worded that.
Gear and beer.
So the final question is, we call it the King's Court. So the King's Court question is, Albert, Freddie, or BB?
Well, I can answer that this way. Actually, I'll answer it this way. Hold on.
You answer it that way. I'm going to pull this out and give us one final sip. Pardon me while I whip this
out. Here's my answer to your question. Okay.
For those of you unfamiliar, the answer is Freddie King.
That's right, man. The Hideaway. That guy, he inspired me in ways that BB kind of didn't.
His songs are so unique.
Freddie's?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. But also,
from Hideaway to Palace of the King.
But you're talking about like 60s into like the 70s even. Like the Palace of the King was like that new movement of songs,
Yeah,
and like
fair.
BB King had all that, like, that the vibrato thing, and it's great.
BB's got so much. I'm a big fan of all of them.
Yeah,
it's an impossible question.
But Lord, I mean, like, yeah, definitely Freddie King though. And Albert was, again, there's things that I love about him. You know that he tuned his guitar like way down. It was like, not only was it reversed, right? He was playing.
He tuned it way down so that he could have all this crazy
bend stuff. There's a video of Jack Pearson at the Songbird Factory playing this old Flying V, and he tunes it way down. And I'm like watching him play, and he just smokes these riffs, right? As Jack Pearson can do.
Sure.
And he goes, funny story, Albert King used to tune his guitar way down like this. He's just like this bumpkin, He used to way down, and he's doing these bends that are like 5-step bends, You're like, what? So, yeah. The most unsuspecting soulful dude right there is Jack Pearson.
No doubt.
Sidebar, Jack Pearson is with the Kings as well.
Oh, yeah. Well, and another person that's of that same era that doesn't get the praise that they deserve is Albert Collins.
Oh, yeah. Dude, I was thinking about him earlier.
Telly. He plays a Telly. Nobody's playing a Telly in the
But he's
blues.
also doing that thing where he just capos way up the neck.
Is he?
And yeah, so this is his whole I ain't drunk, I'm just drinking. But he just capos.
I don't care what the people are thinking.
He just capos way, and if you ever look at like live stuff, he just moves it. It's great, man. I'm way into it,
Well,
and he doesn't get any recognition.
Well, Rob Muzick of Elyria, Ohio, there's nothing left to do but roll out the red carpet for you and look into this camera and only this camera and tell us what you've got going on with your life. Suck it, hot ones.
Well, Whiskey, Cash, and Roses. My new record's coming out. I just talked to them today, as a matter of fact, and they sent me all the info, and it's within the next 3 weeks. It'll be reproduced, and then I'll be setting up a release date for that.
So currently your record is pregnant.
It is pregnant. It's about due. Above the Whiskey.
Hey, no.
By the time this comes out, it should be pretty close to coming out. Check out Spotify.
I will, by the time this, how long before it comes out?
Probably a month, I'd say.
It'll be about a month before this comes out.
Yeah, then great.
So
Even better.
I'll be able to put the links in all the comments.
Brand new record.
Or the notes.
Whiskey, Cash, and Roses has some singles coming out soon.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. We worked on those over the last few months. And
hell yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gesturing to him for listeners, but Rob Muzick, actual last name, not spelled the same, but the man oozes music. He's a friend. He's a fantastic player. Bandmate. We play together weekly, multiple times, and it's awesome, and we'll continue to do that. Until next time, thanks for tuning in to Gear and Beer. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications and send money and buy.
Bye. Cheers, buddy.
Cheers.
Fruity whiskey.
Mm-hmm. Now I'm going to listen to all the Kings while I make burger buns.
Ooh, yeah. That's the best idea I've ever heard.
Thank you for listening to the Gear and Beer podcast. Make sure and subscribe and turn on notifications for our channels. And if you haven't already, follow our Instagram and YouTube channels. We truly appreciate your support and ask that you please tell anyone you know whom you think might be interested in our podcast about Gear and Beer to help us grow and continue bringing in great guests from around the industry and beyond. Thanks again, and until the next episode.